Hello everyone, how's everybody doing? And welcome to Rational Science. Today we're going to be talking about a little property known as spin. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about a little bit of news I came across this week. It's got to do with my extinction theory. And so I just want to cover that subject relatively quickly here. And for those of you who are not familiar, my theory says that, or my proposal, it's not really a theory in that sense, but I'm saying that we're the last humans on Earth. Okay, it all stops here. Don't ask me when it's going to happen, when the last man's going to die. I can't tell you if it's going to be on the 1st of May of 2025 or anything like that. I'm not an astrologer. Okay, don't claim to be. No, I'm saying that the paleontologists have not discovered the mechanisms of extinction, either for background extinctions or mass extinctions. And I'm saying that humans will die in a mass extinction pretty soon. And it's going to happen in the same way it happened to all other animals in the past that died in a mass extinction. And that is, just briefly, our economy is going to fall to pieces. When it does, not if, but when it does, money will be no more. When money is no more, trade is no more. There will be no trade. The only thing of value to trade will be food, and no one's going to trade what little they have. They're just going to eat whatever they have, and that's it, and that's the end of man. So whatever food's on the planet at that moment in time, that's a measure of how much time we have to live collectively. No one will be producing new food. No one will be distributing especially to the cities, new food. Okay? So that's in general terms. I've got a couple videos on that. You can look up those videos and become more familiarized with the arguments that I present. Anyways, the news I came across this week had to do with this government organization in the United States known as the CDC. They came up with this bit of news. Goes like this: why the CDC thinks it's time to prepare for a possible, what? Zombie apocalypse. Okay, it says, back in the 16th century, French astrologer Nostradamus predicted that there would be a zombie apocalypse in the year 2021, and now that it's actually 2021, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention want to make sure you're prepared, just in case. Prepared? Prepared for what? What are we supposed to prepare ourselves for? Is there going to be a catastrophe? Is an asteroid heading our way? What's going on? Well, it's got to do with this, and again, it's got to do with the notion that just about everybody has out there that mass extinctions were caused by some kind of catastrophic disaster. Climate change is lately on everybody's mouths. So is disease because of this COVID. Okay, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. I'm not saying none of that is happening. All I'm saying is that's got nothing to do with why we're going to disappear. We're going to disappear when our economy falls to pieces. Okay, but here's what these people are saying you got to prepare for. It says for disaster. Okay. So that's their argument. They're going to be looking at some kind of disaster. What disasters are they talking about, and what are they asking you to prepare? What's this preparation for? Well, here it is. It says you got to prepare food and water and medical supplies. Okay, this is what they recommend that you store at least for some amount of time. Okay, and especially water. And here, did I get the other? Water and first aid supplies. It says, noting that although, here goes the rest of it, here it is, you're a goner if a zombie bites you. You can use these supplies to treat basic cuts and lacerations that you might get during what? A tornado or a hurricane. Okay, so I guess the issue here is that they think there's going to be, or they're cautioning, and they say, you got to have some supplies in case there is some kind of catastrophe like we've seen in some cities. New Orleans comes to mind. There was this hurricane, this flood. Okay, but I mean, we've always had those. Why now? Is this 2021 any special just because Nostradamus said something? And yeah, it's a campaign. Okay, that's all it is. Like you say, it's just a joke. Don't take it seriously, but prepare. Maybe there's a different reason for preparation, okay, that they have in mind. It says preparedness, message out, the better. And who's behind all this? Well, obviously it's the FEMA, your friendly neighborhood FEMA, okay? So they said you got to be prepared, okay? Okay, so prepare for floods, tornadoes, asteroid strike, I don't know what else, fires, You know, those are the things you got to prepare for. Um, it's kind of strange that they would bring this up just when everybody is at home locked up with their mouths covered, right? Kind of strange. Anyways, where I'm come from this, one of the things that I want to point out today is that for those of you who know the theory, this is in general terms. Again, I'm going to give it a couple paintbrushes real quickly here. And this is essentially the evolution of man, okay? And we've been around maybe 200, 300,000 years. And what do I mean by that? It means that if today we went back 200,000 or 300,000 years, we would be able to have sex with someone maybe that far back in time. But if you go farther back in time, you would not be able to have reproductive sex with that individual. So the farther back you go in time, at some point you get to hybrids, and then you get to no children at all. They don't come out right because we're just genetically too different. Okay, so we're going to make an assumption here that anywhere between 200 and 300,000 years ago, we still were part of. In other words, those people in those days, those were still part of the human race because we could have viable children with them. That's the only criterion here. Okay, and okay, so let's assume we've been around 200,000 years. This is what's happened with our economy during that whole time. Okay, here you see it in a nutshell. Okay, I'm going to assume 200,000 years we were hunters essentially. Okay, that's what we used our spears for. We did not hunt lettuce or tomato with those. We hunted animals. But about 10,000 years ago, and these numbers are very general. Okay, so you can plus or minus 5,000 years won't hurt it at all. About 10,000 years ago, we started declining in globally in hunting, and we went into farming. Okay, we discovered, especially in the Neolithic, we discovered how to farm, and more individuals went into farming and left the jungle. Okay, we formed cities, etc. And eventually, about 300 years ago, we entered what is known as the Industrial Revolution. Okay, and when we did, well, we started making machinery for the farms, and the number of people working the farms started to decline drastically. What happened? These people went to the cities. They started working in the manufacturing area, and from there we produced machines that made farming life a lot easier, and also depleted the country of people. Okay, because we didn't need workers there anymore. So gradually that came to our days, and in the 20th century we had this transition it was around 79, 1980, okay, that we really switched over to services. In other words, services became a bigger portion of the economy of advanced nations in Europe and the United States primarily. And we started doing more services, and more people working in services, and more GDP coming out of services. But what I want to point out today is that there's been a new change about 10 years ago. It's got to do with the nature of services. Okay, for 30 years we had what I will call labor-intensive services, and now we changed that to what we could call self-service. You've got a better name for it? Be my guest. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this. I'm saying the nature of services has changed, or is in the process of changing. Okay, and this is what you get. You have services such as barbering, where you're doing something for someone else, and you need a person there. You run a hotel. You need maids that make the beds, someone who greets you at the door, etc. Airlines, you need pilots. You need flight attendants. Restaurants, you need cooks. You need bus boys, etc. It's still people intensive. Okay. So those services are a little different than what we're getting today, and what we're going to be getting today, I think, from now on, which is everybody going into internet type services. They're going to be doing what I call internet worker. Okay, so someone opens up an account of some kind somewhere, someplace, and they're going to be doing something, some kind of service, maybe typically geared for entertainment. Okay, which is absolutely not necessary. I mean, it's meaning life-threatening necessity, that kind of thing. Like food, you need. You absolutely need food. Do we need entertainment? Well, it's nice to have. Do we need to go on vacation? Well, it'd be great, and so on. But it's going into kind of like a leisure world, also into commercials, people preparing, doing a lot of computer work, both programming and setting up websites and so on, to sell more things, okay? So it's a little different than the kind of work where you have a service, where you mow someone's lawn. Okay, that's like people necessary. You need people in there. This is kind of like everybody owns their own business, okay? And it's a different type of service. So I just wanted to point that out to people out there. Make whatever you want of it. I have my own take on this, okay? How that's going to affect everything. And I can only leave you with a question I asked one of my sons. I got 3 sons, and the other day I had the visit of my second son, and we had a chat about this, quite a long chat. And I asked him a question because he said, okay, so what? You know, new generation, they say, so what? Yeah, there is a so what here. And this is what it's about. I asked him the question. I said, what services can you imagine next? I mean, we're not going back to manufacturing. We're not going back to agriculture. We're not going back to hunting and hunter-gathering. No, it's if we go forward, it's going to be to services. And the question is, what other type of services can you imagine, let alone implement? But what can you imagine? Well, his answer is the same answer everybody gives me. I said, well, if I could imagine the next type of services, I'd make some money or whatever. No, that's the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer because, Jules Verne, 19th century guy, he didn't go to the moon, but he could imagine going to the moon. And he could imagine going around the world in 80 days. And now we do it in a lot less than 80 days and so on. He could imagine stuff. It was science fiction for him. Today it's technology that we do have. And this is something similar. It doesn't mean we have to have it, but you should be able to imagine it. And if you can't imagine it, no one else can imagine it, we won't have it. Because before we can have it, we have to imagine it. And right now we cannot imagine what type of service comes next, other than some of the ones that I mentioned there. Those were just a quick back of the napkin kind of brainstorming, okay? But I'm sure you can come up with a lot more. But the point here is the nature of services have changed. And, we're in this world where we're doing a lot through the internet. In fact, I'm an example. I live off of Social Security. I'm retired, but I mean, here I'm talking about the fact that, I do run a channel. And I love to do this, and that's why I do it. I do it for the fun of it. But a lot of people are getting into it for the money because they have no other jobs, and there are no other jobs for them, or not well-paying jobs, or they want to risk it, or they want to invest whatever little money they have in some kind of coins, maybe Bitcoins or stocks or whatever, and they play the market. So what is all that? It's speculation. It's a different type of service. Okay. So the nature of the services is changing. All I'm asking a fair question, I think. Please imagine, or try to imagine, or see if you can imagine the next type of services we will invent. If you cannot invent or come up with a service, well, the question is, are we going to remain with the services we have today, with this structure, forever and ever, for the next 1,000,000 years? Okay. Which already gives you an idea that, we're getting close to the end of the line. Maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's 10 years, but we're getting very close to the end of the line.